Hello again, my little Imperialis levies, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Horus Heresy 3.0 and how it might be one of the worst games that GW has launched in almost a decade. Oh boy, a hot take indeed. But I stand by it. Both as someone who recently got into Horus Heresy and as someone who has been playing GW games for over 25 years. And so, without further ado, let's fix bayonets and charge into this spicy meatball.
Attention, guardsmen! The Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately, or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
So for those of you that have been living in the hills like a hermit for the last week or so, Heresy 3.0 just crashed and burned. And that is not an exaggeration. There were a whole bunch of leaks around the main core rulebook and also the Liber Hereticus and Liber Astartes, essentially the main codexes for the Traitor and Loyalist legions, and it completely turret tossed the entire game. The response to those leaks from the community to Games Workshop has been visceral. All across their social media, you have got people leaving comments like, "This isn't Heresy 3.0, this is the rules drop massacre." And before you think it's just a bunch of Redditors getting their knickers in a twist, the pre-order for the big Saturnine box, the main launch box for the edition, has been up for a few days now, and it hasn't sold out. And I don't know about you, but I can't remember the last time that a GW pre-order didn't sell out within minutes. God damn it, this edition is so balked that not even the scalpers want to hoover up the boxes. They're like, no way GW, we'd have to get these things and sell them at a loss. And it's not just new stuff which isn't selling, it's the old stuff which is selling. I've spoken to a few local game store owners around my area, and they have genuinely had people coming into their stores and buying up second edition Horus Heresy books in a bit of a panic because they want to get their hands on them before they go away because they're intending on sticking with second edition. And speaking of local game stores, I have spoken to a few quietly on the side who have said not only have they had pre-orders numbers be very low, but they've also had a whole bunch of people that did pre-order now cancel their pre-orders, which is a real shame because obviously it's not the local game store's fault that the edition is being widely rejected and seen as trash, but they are going to be the ones that suffer from it. So the big question is, why? Why are so many people pissed off about this game and are just rejecting it out of hand? Now, full disclosure here, I'm not a fan of Heresy 3.0. I am definitely going to be biased in this video, and I might as well just wear that on my sleeve. But the 100% God's honest truth is I don't like 3.0 because I don't like change. I don't like 3.0 because it's just shit. It's a bad game, Ripley. It's a bad game. From the models to the rules to the design, it's just very flawed. And the thing is, I'm saying this as someone who is more than likely the target demographic for this game, a person who plays Warhammer 40k as their main hobby. You see, there's something that's been bandied around on the internet at the moment where a lot of the old Heresy fans are saying that Games Workshop is trying to basically get rid of the old fans and they want to cultivate a new community. And I think that kind of makes sense when you look at it in the abstract. But when you actually get into the rules, and I have seen the rules, I don't have an NDA with GW, let's be clear here. I can say whatever I want about them within reason. Do you know what I mean? I still don't want the hammer to come down on me. But I can give you the truth. I don't have to push a product or shield for them or anything like that. I have a copy of the rules that fell off the back of a lorry, okay? And I have got into these rules. I have looked into them. And I can tell you, these are not for me. These are not rules that a 40k player is going to want to enjoy, because in the areas where they should be simple, they're complex, and in the areas where they should be complex, they're too simple. And it's not 40k. If I want to play 40k, I'll go and play 40k. I want to play Heresy because it's not 40k. This was the number one attracting thing to me to Heresy, which was I've played, no word of a lie, probably 100 to 2, easily 100. I'm being conservative with that. Easily 100 competitive games of Warhammer 40k. Those are ones that are at tournaments in 2 years. At one point, I was going to a tournament a week, every week for months, okay? And I've also probably played the same number of games again casually, whether it's for battle reports or whatever it may be, because I've done a 40k battle report, nearest damn it, every week, if not more than one a week, for 2 years at this point. So I play a lot of 40k. I am a bit burned out on Warhammer 40k. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. There's a lot of people right now, as we're sort of going from the second year of 40k to the third year, where really it's like, okay, I'm still playing 40k, but I kind of need a palate cleanser. I need something to refresh the palate, because or for some people that don't play it like I do full time, it's basically a job. It's like, okay, I'm just going to take a break from 40k for 6 months to a year, and then I'm just going to come back to it in 11th edition. That is where so many 40k players are, and that is why so many of us were starting to get interested in Heresy, because we're like, look, it's sci-fi, it's in the GW bubble. A lot of the models that I can buy for this, I can use in 40k. Like if I buy a Heresy Predator, I can use that in 40k. If I buy a Heresy Vindicator, I can use that in 40k. You know, honestly, I'll use 10 Heresy Tactical Marines to represent 10 Intercessors. I don't really care. So I was the target demographic for this game, and I am telling you, this game is not for me. This game is not for me. I'll give you a bunch of examples now, but if GW is hoping to attract a new audience with this game, they have completely messed up. All they have achieved is really pissing off the old community who aren't going to want to support this anymore, and basically making it unattractive to any kind of 40k community. So one example of this is the list building. It's both very complicated and very freeform. In 40k, the way I build a list is I go, I want that unit, so I put it in my list. I have to take one character, and then after that, I can take what I want. In Horus Heresy, I have to take a character which then unlocks a detachment, and then I can take certain units in those detachments, and then if I put certain units in prime slots in that detachment, then they get a bonus. But if I don't put certain units in there, then they won't, and other units won't get the prime slot, and they won't get the detachment bonus. And so, yes, on the one hand, now there's not the restrictive force organization chart, which, let's be honest, was creaking at the seams in Heresy 2.0. Like, there were so many examples of, well, you can take one unit in a slot, or you can take like 3 units in a slot. So the force org chart was already creaking at the seams. But what they've done is they've tried to make it like 40k, where it's like, oh, we've got no force org chart. Now you can take whatever kind of armies you want. You want a pure bike army? You go, girl. Unless you're white scars, because you can't put characters on bikes. But we'll get to that in a minute. It's like free-form design, but it's complex. So on the one hand, it's too complex for the primitive 40k player brain. It's too much. I just want to take a unit and play with it. That's how 40k players think. I don't want to be taking this to unlock this, to unlock this, to unlock this. No. If I'm going to play 40k, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a 40k list, and it's very, very quick. One of the biggest advantages to Warhammer 40k lists, and I say this as someone who likes granular points. I say this as someone who likes nitty-gritty detail. One of the biggest advantages is that if I'm sat there on the toilet having a banging shit, I can pull my phone out, and once I've stopped doom scrolling through Instagram, I can go over to something like New Recruit, and I can just be like, okay, put that unit in, and then that one. 2 minutes later, I've got a list. I don't have to like mess around with the exact war gear. I can just work out, would that come to 2,000 points? Okay, no, that's not quite. Drop that, put that in. Oh, okay, yeah. So within 2 minutes, I've got a 40k list, and I'm like, okay, I can now run that. That's fantastic. That's what I want to run. But if I'm a 40k player coming over to Horus Heresy, I'm like, so I've got to take this character to unlock this, and then this goes in here, and now I've got to track that unit is in a prime slot. But if I've got like 2 identical squads, like 2 tactical marine squads, for example, that one's in a prime slot, so it gets the bonus, but that one's not in the prime slot, so that doesn't get a bonus. So I've got to try and track that on the tabletop, and then I want to take tanks. Like, how do I take tanks? I've got to take that over there. I've got to take that guy, and then he unlocks that detachment, and then I get to take tanks, and I'm going to put a few predators in there. But that predator's a prime slot, so it gets a bonus, but that predator's not a prime slot, so it doesn't get a bonus. So now I've got to try and track that. And it's just like, there's loads of moving parts. And again, I'm not saying that's bad. What I'm saying is, to a 40k player, that is wholly unattractive. And again, I'm not saying this is like fundamentally a bad idea, but what I'm saying is it's not good if you're trying to get 40k players in. I've heard a lot of the people online who are trying to sort of find silver linings to this game. There is no silver lining, I'm just going to be real with you. The people that are trying to find silver linings to this game, they're like, oh, well, it's hard to get into, but once you're into it, it's really good. And I'm like, okay, but this is a game that's apparently being marketed to 40k players. So you're making someone's secondary game one that they're only going to play for a relatively short amount of time until 11th edition comes along, and then occasionally after that, you're taking someone's palate cleanser and you're making it hard for them to get into it. Not a great plan. And then on the other side, you've got the Horus Heresy players, who, let's be real, are a bunch of crusty old grognards. They are. And the funny thing is, I'm going to say that about them, and they're not going to be upset about it. They're not going to be like, no. They're going to be like, yes, I am. That does describe me. I don't see that as an insult. I see that as a compliment. You know, Heresy players are the ones that saw what was happening in Warhammer 40k over the course of 8th, 9th, and 10th edition and went, I don't like that. I want to play Oldhammer. So I'm going to play Oldhammer. The fact that the original version of Heresy was basically a mod for 40k 6/7th edition, and those people are still playing what essentially that rule set and enjoying it, should tell you everything you need to know. They're like the historical war gamers of the GW sci-fi tabletop game community. Right? They know what they like what they know. And even though many of them would admit that the old Force Org chart was a bit, like I said, creaky, and that something probably new did need to be done, they're still pretty pissed off that the old Force Org chart is going away. So you've got a system that doesn't appeal to new players, or specifically doesn't appeal to 40k players, and then you've got a system which is going to upset all the crotchety old grognardy people that don't like things changing. So no one's happy. Another big thing that they've changed, which I think is for the worse, again, as a 40k player, I am saying this is for the worse, is they have gone from the instant death system to the damage system. So what used to happen in Heresy is basically every weapon was 1 damage. But if you got hit by a weapon whose strength was double your toughness, you would suffer from instant death and you would lose all your wounds. So for example, if you shoot a Terminator with a bolter and the Terminator's got 2 wounds and the Terminator fails one of its saves, the Terminator would take 1 wound and would still have 1 wound left over. If you hit the Terminator with a las cannon, and the las cannon manages to get through the Terminator's save, even though it's like all weapons are technically damage 1, because the las cannon's strength is 9 and the Terminator's toughness is 4, it meant that it instant deathed him and it killed him outright. This way, you essentially had everyone doing 1 damage until you hit someone with something really tough, and then they would go splat. Now, let me tell you, this is something that we need back in Warhammer 40k. That might be a bit of a controversial opinion, but the number 1 reason for stat line bloat in Warhammer 40k is the damage system. Because what happens is Games Workshop releases a whole bunch of weapons and they end up increasing the damage on them. So it used to be in like 8th and 9th edition that like damage 2 was the norm. Now damage 3 is the norm in 10th edition, and we're starting to see things like damage 4 become very, very commonplace. So weapons become ever increasingly high in damage values. But to counter that, now everyone runs around with a ridiculous number of wounds. It would not surprise me if in 11th edition we start seeing Marines with like 3 wounds. We've already got it in some cases. You've got Gravis Marines with 3 wounds. You've got Terminators with 3 wounds. You've got Terminators with shields who've got like 4 wounds. And then you've got damage mitigation. So you've got like Terminators with shields. So they've got 4 wounds, but then they reduce the damage by 1. So that if they get hit by damage to the weapon, they're still really hard to kill. And then they've got like a 4 feel no pain. And these things are not uncommon. What I've described is not uncommon. The idea that, 40k and Heresy Marines are basically the same, but one's got 1 wound, one's got 2 wounds, that stopped being a thing a long time ago. Stat lines, both for weapons and on unit profiles, continue to inflate and continue to bloat in a game. And the reason why we have to roll so many dice now, the reason why like a Berserker in 40k needs to have like 5 or 6 attacks is because those attacks are technically damage 1, so he needs more of them if he's going to like kill what he's on the other side of. And so it just leads to ever increasing numbers of dice. It leads to ever increasing bloat in terms of stat lines, with more wounds, more defensive buffs being put on, and it leads to ever increasingly powerful weapons. One of the great things about Heresy was that basically everything's 1 damage unless it's very, very strong, and then it just splats you. Simple, elegant, and effective. But moving on, the next thing they've tried to 40kify about Heresy, which has completely missed the mark, is the terrain rules. You see, in Heresy 2.0, it was just true line of sight. If I can see you, I can shoot you. If I can't see you, I can't shoot you. That was it. And you could only kill what you could see. Now, that did lead to, in theory, things like rhino sniping and stuff happening. But as someone who played a lot of 6th and 7th edition, where that was also something that could happen, you basically never saw it except for in the sweatiest of tournament tables. Because most people would just not do it because it was kind of... we're playing Heresy to be immersed, not to not be immersed. So rhino sniping was a thing in theory. In reality, it wasn't something that people really came across. And that was my experience playing 6th and 7th edition. And from the people that I've spoken to and the few games of Heresy Heresy 2nd edition that I have played, it just was never really something that was going to come up and be a thing. It's just not the way the game really was played, unless it was played competitively. And Heresy was really seen more of a narrative game than a competitive game anyway. On the other side of the aisle, you've got the 40k terrain rules, which are a lot more abstract. Essentially, it's L-shaped ruins on like rectangular bases. And if you are on the ruin, then you can see through the ruin and the enemy can see your unit that's in the ruin. But if you're not on that ruin, then nobody can see through. Even if the ruin's got loads of windows on it, so you can clearly sort of see each other through the windows. No. Ruins totally block line of sight. If you're in them, then everyone can see into the ruins and everyone can see out of the ruins. That's how it works. Now, what they've done with Heresy 3.0 is tried to combine these two systems, but rather than creating a beautiful hybrid, it has instead created some degenerate mutant. So how it works is you have light terrain, which is like it was in 2nd edition, but that only confers like a 6-up cover save, so there's not really much benefit to being in light terrain. And then you've got medium terrain, and there's heavy terrain as well, but medium terrain for me is the real offender here. Medium terrain says that you can only see 3 inches into the terrain. So that means that you could have a classic Heresy ruined building scenario and you can't see through it. True line of sight is basically gone. You can't see through it. Now, where this really gets messed up is when 2 units both go into the ruin. Because unless those units are within 3 inches of each other, even though they're in the same terrain piece, even though they're fighting over this ruin, they can't see each other. So I was watching a battle report, and big shout out to Winter's SEO, definitely go and check out his channel, where you had 2 units of tactical marines that had moved into a building that were literally this far apart from each other, and they couldn't shoot each other, and they couldn't charge each other, but they could see each other. They could physically see each other, but because they were 3.5 inches away, they couldn't charge. It was so, it just completely broke the immersion. And rather than having, getting the camera in there, and rather than having like this epic scene where you can see like a unit of like Iron Hands versus a unit of Sons of Horus, and they're both advancing forward, and you can see like the silhouette of one tactical squad advancing in through, as the other tactical squad is also advancing from the other side. And rather than having like this epic clash over this ruined building, this strong point that maybe it was once an important building, but now it is just an important defensive position. Rather than this epic clash over this, it's just, we can't see each other. And then you've also got like things like reactive moves. So reactive moves are a thing in Heresy now. I'm not sure if they were something that was in 2nd edition, but they're now much more widespread. And they really mess with terrain. Because you could have a squad that's in this terrain feature, like towards the edge of it, and the opponent moves their squad into the terrain feature. Like, okay, I'm going to move in so I can shoot you. I'm going to get within 3 inches, and you then go, reactive move, back. Now I'm not within 3 inches, you can't shoot me. It's like, but I've just moved my Rhino up here, and I've just done this thing that makes sense. I've advanced a squad into a ruin to clear it. Yeah, you're not going to clear it. It's like the rules are designed, the reactions especially, but the way the reactions work with terrain, it's like they are designed to stop players from fighting, which is a terrible game design. You want people to be fighting and the fights to be epic. Like, one of the most annoying things in Warhammer 40k is the reactive move. In fact, there's a whole thing about it. People say factions either play honest Warhammer or they don't play honest Warhammer, play dishonest Warhammer. Factions that play honest Warhammer are, here's your stat lines, here are my weapons, even if I'm overpowered and I'm broken, it doesn't feel shit when you play against me because there's no tricks involved, we're just fighting. And then you've got dishonest Warhammer where it's like, well, I'm going to move towards you, but now I can reactive move, now I can do this, now I can do that, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, oh, it's just so fucky, I just want to fight. I just want to fight. And so basically, all of Horus Heresy 3.0 has now become dishonest Warhammer. It's just gotchas. Gotchas as far as the eye can see. And just to go a bit further with this, you see similar interactions happening with reactions and return fire. So previously, you could do like one return fire, and it was very, very powerful. But now you've got problems where units don't want to shoot because they're so worried about the return fire. They're so worried because it's so mismatched. So you've got situations where players are like, I'm not going to shoot you with my guys because if I do that, then they're going to shoot back and the clapback is going to be unreal. I've seen some Heresy battle reports where the person that started the shooting attack came off significantly worse. And they shot first. They got the drop on them. It's just like, what? You're encouraging players not to fight each other. And let me make something clear. A lot of what I'm saying now can apply to reactions in 2.0. But here's the thing. Reactions in 2.0 were a very mixed bag. A lot of players didn't like them. A lot of people didn't play with them. Reactions were already very controversial. To basically take a system which was already a bit and then make it worse. People are looking at the rules in abstract and they're like, oh, they've made reactions better. No, go and play a game. Go and watch a game. Don't just read them on paper. Go and see how they actually impact games. And you will see that these reactions have, whilst in theory gotten better, when the theory meets the reality, when we go from theory hammer to tabletop hammer, they are really quite a lot worse. A lot of the time, these reactions are de-incentivizing people to fight. Either you're moving away from each other or you're not going to shoot because you're fear of the reprisals. This isn't Warhammer. Players are being discouraged to fight. This is Peace Hammer. Moving on, we have got the challenge mechanic. Now, this was a really big one. This is one that's been all over the GW marketing. Challenges this, challenges that. It's like the main focus of the game. Challenges where they've really improved stuff. And they're bollocks. They're bollocks. So how the mechanic is meant to work is two characters get into an epic duel with strike and thrust and parry and dodge. And over multiple rounds of dueling, one side will emerge victorious over the other, and they will raise the bloody head of the slain champion and cry out to the dark gods or to the emperor, right? That's what's meant to happen. Doesn't work like that. Basically, this whole mechanic that's meant to be epic gets completely undermined in one go by the fact that you can just withdraw from the challenge. So, at the beginning of the challenge, both players pick a gambit. The gambit is meant to be how it's going to enhance your performance in the challenge. Are you going to go for more speed? Are you going to go for more attacks? Maybe lower your defense? You're just going to swing in haymakers. No thought of your own defense. You're just going to all gas, no brakes. Or you could just choose your gambit to be withdraw. So you just go, oh yeah, we'll fight one round and then I'm just withdrawing. What? What? Just defeats the whole point. Because the thing is, sergeants don't do challenges. Squad leaders don't do challenges. The only people that do challenges are like proper characters, like champions and above. Okay, so proper characters. Now, these proper characters tend to have multiple wounds. So what happens is, and I've seen this happen on a few different battle reports now. In fact, in one battle report, I saw the challenge happen, and the only reason it happened is because the people said, okay, well, normally I would just withdraw from this scenario because this challenge is very one-sided for me, so there's no benefit to me doing multiple rounds, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you like how it works. But they would have just withdrawn. Because it's fairly obvious if one, most of the time it's fairly obvious if one side's got the advantage in the challenge or not. So what's happened in the other games that I've seen is the two people have gone in, the controlling players like issued a challenge, and the defending players goes, yeah, I'm going to withdraw. So they lose a couple of wounds. But ultimately their character survives, and then the challenge is over, and that's it, it's over. Because why would you stay in a challenge if you're just going to lose? I mean, there will be the occasional time when it's very epic, when it's a back and forth, but most of the time it's a mismatched fight. You're going to have someone who's geared up for challenges going into someone who's not geared up for challenges. So it just doesn't work. And the worst bit is that you're only going to get an opportunity to do a challenge once or twice in an entire game. Because this leads me on to the final thing, and the big thing, which is the number of turns. I'm just going to say it. There's only 4 turns in the game, and that has completely killed any interest I have in Heresy 3.0. So in Heresy 2.0 and in old editions of Warhammer, objectives were typically scored at the end of the game. This had some disadvantages, where sometimes people would just wait until the end of the game, then jump out and try and score as many points as possible. Going second was quite a big advantage. But truth be told, that hasn't really changed all that much. If you look at Warhammer 10th edition 40k, right, this going second is still a big advantage. What I found in the vast majority of games that I watched, and also the few that I played of Heresy 2.0, is that actually didn't really happen. It actually came down to a nail biter. A real nail biter. Because, again, you've got to think about what Heresy was. It was the less competitive, more narratively focused. And so whilst there's always good choices, there are a lot of the times people are taking units because they like what they like. And so there's inherent inefficiencies in lists, means that things can come down to just the wire. Comes down to a nail biter finish. Every last action matters. Every last thing matters. Another game that does it similarly is Bolt Action. And I've played a lot of Bolt Action. Hundreds of games Bolt Action. On channel, off channel, hundreds of games Bolt Action. And one of the great things about Bolt Action is it can just change. You might be getting absolutely rocked turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. But suddenly, you start turning that franchise around. And turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, the fight back begins. And that bolt action is a different game. And there are many other factors that go into making bolt action often feel like a game that every turn matters. But there was a similar essence, there was a similar sense in Heresy 2.0, old Heresy editions and old editions of 40k. Now, scoring is done cumulatively throughout the game, like in Warhammer 40k, because they're trying to 40k-ify the game. But the thing is that they've got the boring standing on circles bit of Warhammer 40k, but they haven't got the exciting draw random secondary missions part of Warhammer 40k. So you've got secondary missions which are scored at the end of the game, primary missions that are scored throughout the game, but the reality is that you've just got like the worst of both worlds. And you've only got 4 turns to achieve it. And so what I've noticed is that one side can get really far ahead on points in the early game, and the other side can't get back into it. I must be on my third game, my third Heresy Battle Report at this point, where it's basically over turn 2. Because even if the person who's behind gets mega score on turn 3 and turn 4, it's not enough to get them back in. If there was a turn 5 and turn 6, they could turn the franchise around. But there's not enough time. There's only 4 turns. 4 turns! I'm just going to have to riff about this for a moment. Off the cuff, stream of consciousness, but I just got to express the raw emotion that I'm feeling around this. 4 turns! What the fuck were you thinking? Who came up with that? It's so obviously bad. To quote 28 Days Later, do you know why this is a shit idea? Because it's so obviously a shit idea. 4 turns. There's so many different ways that the game being only 4 turns is a bad idea. Firstly, the aforementioned, it makes it harder to get back into the game and really incentivizes just front-loading your score at the beginning, and basically incentivizes games to be over either by hyper-lethality in the first couple of turns of the game, or to be over by hyper-overscoring in turns 1 and 2 of the game. It just encourages games to be over before they've begun. So there's that side of it. The other side of it is movement. We're still playing on a 6x4 board, but now we only move a handful of turns. My beloved Death Guard, if I want to benefit from my army rule, I have to move 4 inches or less. I get to move 16 inches in a turn if I want to have an army rule. That's shit! On a 6x4 board. It means if a unit of Death Guard walking forward who want to benefit from their army rule the entire game, if they deploy on the very edge of their deployment zone and walk in a straight line with no deviations for all 4 movement phases, will be able to cross the halfway point in their turn 4. Ooh. Now, of course, there's things like transports. Of course, you've got charges and deep striking and all this kind of stuff. But in a lot of those cases, it means I'm, again, giving up my army rule in order to be able to move fast. Just kills it. Movement wins games. Movement wins games. And with the way the new terrain works, it's not like it's even a good trade-off. Because like, oh, well, yeah, you get like a wall of lance cannons. Oh, yeah, joy, I can't see anything. Because it's true line of sight. I can't see anything. I should say it's not true line of sight. It's this obscure line of sight. So I can't see anything. I've just got to riff about this for a moment, okay? Just off the cuff, stream of consciousness. This bit's going to be a bit rough, guys. But 4 turns? What the fuck were you thinking? There's so many layers to why this is a bad idea. I'm just going to go through the ones that come off the top of my head. But to quote 28 Days Later, do you know why this is such a shit idea because it's so obviously a shit idea. Firstly, you've got the aforementioned scoring problems. Because there's only 4 turns, it's really hard to get back into the game. It's really hard to turn the franchise around. So all it does is emphasize the first couple of turns to be either hyper lethal or hyper scoring. You're either going to build lists which are utterly lethal because you're just like, I just need to kill as much as possible, as quickly as possible. That way my opponent won't be able to like score as much and I'll be able to just basically win on killing stuff, essentially negating the point of the missions. Or it massively incentivizes hyper scoring where you're like, I'm just not going to try and kill anything. I'm just going to take units that get loads and loads of bonus points for being on the objectives. I'm just going to rush like lemmings onto the objective and just score. That's all I'm going to do. And then even if I get tabled, it doesn't matter because I'm on like 30, 40 points and my opponent's on like 8. It's just however you slice it, it just encourages massive swings rather than it being like, I'm going to take a bit of this, a bit of that, I'll try a bit of this, season a bit of that. It's just like, no, all scoring, go, or all DACA all the way, must kill, must deny. But there's no in between. Because if there was a bit more time, if there were like 5 or 6 turns, then it'd be like, okay, if someone goes all in on the scoring front, then they're going to have to really accumulate a lot of points, because if you like accumulate, let's say, points sort of turn 1 and 2 and 3, but then you've got to survive turn 4, 5 and 6, and the other person has gone for like big shooting or has gone for a more balanced list, you might end up finding that on the final turn you've lost most of your army and they managed to score just enough points to get the win out the bag. It makes it much more risky. But now it's like, no, banzai onto the objectives. Big banzai boys. And I'm just going to massively outscore, and then if everyone dies, it doesn't matter. 4 turns, man. There's just another reason why it's so bad is movement. You only get 4 movement phases now. If you're a Death Guard player like me, you're balked. You only get to move 4 inches a turn and use your army rule, your rights of war. That means you get to move 16 inches in a turn. If you move in a straight line, you'll get just over the halfway point on a 6x4 board, because we're still on a 6x4 board. It's so ludicrous. But this gets even more insane when you realize how punishing things like reserves and reactions and status effects can be. Because if you make a reserve roll but don't come in, that's 25% of the game you've missed out on. If you do what we said before and someone moves towards, you move a unit into a ruin and they do the reaction move out, they've just, for 1 reaction point, just denied one of your units 25% of the game. If your unit gets pinned or stunned as a status effect, then they've just missed out on 25% of the game. There's no way that these things were thought of in the same bubble as let's go to 4 turns. It does not make sense. It truly gives the sense that, it gives the feel that different teams were working on different parts, like a group project at school, and each person was working on a different part of the rules. They all did their own thing. The only way they communicated with each other is like over a coffee in the break room, and they went back to working on their own bits of the rules in isolation. And then once they'd all done their own bit of the group project, they just came together and just stitched it all together. I truly cannot fathom how you can come up with the idea of having so many different status effects that essentially cripple you for a turn, and then you reduce the amount of turns in the game. It's bonkers. It defies common sense and logic. And truth be told, that applies to so much of this game. It's gone from being an immersive, intuitive rule set to an abstract, arbitrary one. The last thing I want to say on the rules, and a great example of this, is how heavy works. The heavy special rule. So traditionally, how heavy weapons have worked is they are more powerful, but you have to stand still to be able to shoot with them accurately. If you move, you hit on snapshots. Now, heavy gives you +1 to a certain characteristic, with that typically being either damage or strength. But that doesn't make sense. Why would running around and shooting a heavy weapon is going to decrease your accuracy? Why would staying still make a weapon stronger? And the most egregious example of this is the missile launcher. Why would staying still increase the strength of my missile launcher? What, has the powder charge in the rocket somehow become more potent because I fired it standing still? It's the same explosive force. Why would the strength get any higher? Doesn't make sense. It's just they needed the heavy thing to interact with the damage thing, so they just came up with an arbitrary way of doing that. And you can try, as the player, you can try and do the whole, well, maybe it's because if you're firing the weapon from a still position, you're more likely to do damage. You're more likely to like hit a critical part. But yeah, hit being the word, it's down to accuracy. You can ask me, the player, to try and logic away and abstract away why this is working the way that it works, but it's not intuitive. I, the player, am having to do a lot of work to make sense of why this rule works this way. Whereas it's much easier for me as a player to go, heavy gun, more accurate when on a bipod, not being fired from the hip. I mean, why would firing a weapon on a bipod make it do more damage? The bullet is still, if in real life, if I'm firing a machine gun, I don't do more. The bullets don't magically become stronger. The bullets don't magically start doing more damage. The reason I'm able to do more damage is because I am hitting you rather than just spraying my machine gun from the hip. I'm on a bipod, on a tripod, and I'm shooting at you from a stable firing platform. I'm more likely to hit you, which is what leads me to being more likely to do damage to you. But it's the hitting thing which is important. I don't hit the same by moving and shooting. I hit more by staying still. And it's a small example, but it's one that to me is truly very, very indicative of the design philosophy, the design process of this game, and how it has gone from being intuitive to abstract. And to me, in a strange sort of way, more so than anything else we've talked about from the rules perspective, that is the most telling factor. That is the most telling factor that they've tried to 40Kify this game. And the reality of the situation is, as a 40K player, if I want to play 40K, I'll just play Warhammer 40K. Why would I play a game that's trying to be 40K, but isn't? If I'm going to play Heresy, it's because I want to play something other than Warhammer 40K. Now that just about covers everything that I've got to say about the rules. And I will say a lot of these are my personal dislikes, but I have seen many of these sentiments echoed online as well. And the reason that I've talked about the rules first is because that's something which is personally affecting me. I'm relatively new to Heresy. I do have a very large Death Guard army, and I've got a massive Imperial Guard army, which I was using for Imperialis Militia. But for me, as someone who's getting into the game newly, as a convertee, the thing that was attracting me to Heresy was the 2.0 rules set. And whilst they weren't perfect, they were giving me what I wanted as a 40K player coming over to a new game. And these new rules are not giving me what I want as a 40K player coming over to this new game. But there's another thing, a really big one. And this is one which doesn't personally affect me because I'm a newbie to this scene. But it's one that is, without a shadow of a doubt, causing the most issues right now. It's the biggest complaint right now, and it's the unit options. So essentially what's happened is Games Workshop has taken their policy of, if it's not in our box, we don't make rules for it, and applied it to Heresy. This is completely at odds with the design philosophy of the last 10 years for this game. All through first edition, all through second edition, it was a kit basher's wet dream. If you wanted to convert your guys to represent a unique datasheet like Blood Angels with their special assault cannons, you could do that. If you wanted to be able to represent an upgrade that was on your datasheet, on your unit entry that said like bolt pistol and chainsword, but then the box itself only came with like bolters, you could do that. If there was a unit upgrade where maybe your Night Lord Raptors could take 2 claws, but the box only came with 1, that's fine. Put the hard work in, find the second claw, make it work, and you would be rewarded for it. All of that has now gone. And it has come as a massive curveball to the Heresy community. If you're a Warhammer 40k player, this is par for the course. They're always taking things away from us. They're always reducing unit options, and they've been pursuing this policy consistently for about 5 or 6 years now for 40k. Bit by bit, they've drip fed it in. Bit by bit, they have introduced this, and they've taken out a lot of Forge World stuff, they've taken out a lot of resin stuff, they've reduced a lot of unit options down. Now in 40k, it was accepted for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was drip fed in. They boiled the frog, essentially. Now, that can be seen in quite a negative, cynical kind of way, but it's actually a good way for Games Workshop to do it. If you're going to have a policy, you're going to implement it. Implementing it a bit over time is good because A, it allows people to get used to the changes, and B, it allows people to adapt to the changes, and C, it gives people a chance to see the benefits of the changes. And one of the big benefits in Warhammer 40k is a lot of these things got trimmed down and got reduced, and a lot of these options got streamlined in the name of balance. And Warhammer 40k has always been a balance-focused game. You might think that's a laughable statement because the game isn't balanced and has never been balanced, but it has been the thing the community has asked for more than anything else. Balance, balance, balance. And so we were willing to endure and to bear some pretty big sacrifices in the name of balance. Also, it often felt like there was one hand taking but one hand giving at the same time. Looking at Imperial Guard for a moment, we lost things like hardened veterans, but we gained plastic Kazakin. Okay, Plastic Kazakin are essentially veteran squads, so I will be able to work with this. We lost things like conscripts, but they gave us back big blob squads of regular infantry. Okay, I can deal with this. And we've gained lots of new shiny plastic kits with like the Krieg and the Cadians and the Rogol Dawn battle tank, even though some people still take the piss out of the name and where it came from and all that kind of stuff, has generally been very well accepted by the Guard. And this is just one example of hundreds that have happened over 40k. They've taken things off us, but they've given us things. It seemed like a trade, and we've been willing to accept these changes because we always want the game to be more balanced. So it was okay. It was all right. And it happened over a long period of time. So those people that didn't like it could offboard in a timely way. And those people that did want to stick around would have time to adapt. But none of that's happened with Heresy. It's just been bang. Everything in one go. Boom. And it's a shock to the system. And not only is it a shock to the system, but it also goes against the number one reason why so many people got into Heresy, because it was seen as a more stable game. Heresy 3.0 completely fails to understand, or is purposefully designed to be anti-Heresy community, which is wild. You have cultivated a community of players and an image around this game and a selling point, most importantly, a selling point around this game of, look, it doesn't get messed with like 40k does. We just tweak things here, we change things there, but it's pretty stable. For warts and all, it's pretty stable. If something is broken, it stays broken. If something is cool, it stays cool. But you know when you're getting into the game that it's going to be stable state. And this is a massive selling point, by the way, not only to old crotchety grognards, but also to 40k players. Because 40k is already a game that, like I said, changes constantly. It absorbs people's lives. It is the main game. So when we're looking to get into a secondary game, one of the number one selling points of that is it's a game that's not going to change a lot. Because when you're collecting a secondary game, you want something that you can get into as a palate cleanser for 3 to 12 months, go full Heresy pilled, and then when the new edition of 40k comes out, you can put the army on the shelf and you can go back to 40k and you can no life that for 2 or so years, and then you come back to Heresy when you've got burnt out on the new edition of 40k and your army is still there, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember why I loved playing Heresy so much. Oh yeah, I remember I built this guy when I was in the honeymoon phase, all that kind of stuff. And you take the army off the shelf and you play with it and you start investing in new stuff and you start having great stuff. And it's the enthusiasm itself which makes you want to play. And it's the fresh, exciting feeling. It's the palate cleanse that makes you want to buy stuff. And then once you've had your palate cleanse, you put it back on the shelf and then you come back to Warhammer 40k for the next edition, and when you get burned out of that, you go back over to Heresy, pull that off the shelf, add more units to it, get back into it, feel the freshness, feel the excitement, and so on and so forth. But if that's not the deal anymore, if that's not the Faustian deal that we have with GW anymore, then why the fuck would I play Heresy? Why would I pick Heresy as my secondary game? If Heresy is going to become a game that I have to know life as much as Warhammer 40k, I'm just not going to play it. I'm not going to play Heresy. I already have a game that eats up far too much time. I'm someone who plays Warhammer 40k for a living, and I can barely keep up with the changes. I can barely keep up with the churn. I like the churn because it's 40k, it's my main squeeze, but I don't want that from the side piece. If I'm going to have a side piece, my side piece needs to be steady, it needs to be stable, it needs to be, I can get into this when I need to get into it, and then I can leave it alone for a bit, and then when I need to get back into it, it's there, it's ready, and I don't have to relearn everything. It's the number one reason why for so many 40k players now, especially in my community, especially in the Guard community and the MG community specifically, that when we want a palate cleanse, we go over to something like Bolt Action from Warlord Games. Bolt Action is amazing. And I'm trying not to give you the sales pitch. I'm trying not to. But I'm just going to say 2 things. The first one is, from 1st edition Bolt Action to 2nd edition Bolt Action to 3rd edition Bolt Action, which only came out last year, that's like 10 years. Do you want to know how many of my models were invalidated? Do you want to know how many of my models I had to like chop up and rechange the loadout on? Fucking 0. Zilch. None. And has that stopped me from buying by action? Fuck no. I went and bought 3 more tanks only this weekend. Well, 2 tanks of transport. I got a Tiger, a Cromwell, and a Hanomag. But because I get treated right and I don't feel like I'm getting constantly squeezed, it makes me want to buy more things from Warlord. Do you understand how easy it is to 3D print World War II stuff? Because it's just history. There's basically no licenses around it. No copyright around it. It's so easy. And I have a 3D printer. And I have 0 3D printed Bolt Action units because I'm like, no, I could 3D print stuff, but I want to support Warlord. I want to because they're treating me right, so I'm going to try and treat them right. I have so many 3D printed things for Games Workshop games. So many. Entire armies. Why? Because I feel like sticking it to them. If they fuck me, I'm going to fuck them. And this is the bit what has happened with Horus Heresy. People have put their time, put their effort, put their love, put their soul into this game on the sort of unwritten understanding, the nod and the wink, that this is the game that you go to if you want to stay in the GW bubble but you don't want to be messed with. Warts and all, this game doesn't change, and if something's broken, it's going to stay broken, but at least it's stable. And they've completely shattered that illusion. I don't think Games Workshop realized how much damage that has done. 40k like I said, 40k players will suck it up and accept it because they get something back in return. You won't see that with Heresy. It's not what the Heresy community really wanted. It's not going to attract new players in, because new players from 40k, if they want those vibes, they'll stick with 40k. Heresy was something different. It scratched a different itch. It was the palate cleanser. So all you've done is made a game that isn't going to attract new people in, and you've screwed off your existing customer base. It's a huge, huge ball drop from Games Workshop. They fumbled it so hard. And here's the big thing. I think they knew it as well. Because this brings me to the last thing I want to talk about in this video, the marketing. When Heresy 3.0 was announced, there was a big song and dance about how this is the same game that you know and love. That wholesale changes haven't been made, and that people with existing armies will be able to bring them over and have a great time. And that, on every level, was bollocks. Firstly, as I have talked about far too much today, the rules are not the same. Wholesale changes were made, and I do not consider this to be Heresy 3.0. I consider this to be New Heresy version 1. The game is not the same. It is an entirely new game that is wearing the skin of Horus Heresy. But that's not what you said it was, Games Workshop. You lied. They also said that people's existing collections would be able to come over. That's not true. With all of the options that have been invalidated, with everything that has been changed on the unit options, that was just a lie. It was a straight up lie. And looking back on that marketing now, with the benefit of hindsight, it's kind of weird that that's what they let off with when you think about it. It's almost like they knew it was going to be a big problem and they wanted to get ahead of the story. It's almost like they were projecting. A bit like when one person in a relationship cheats on their partner and then they start accusing their partner of being the one that cheated. It's like a big red flag. It's like, oh my God, why is so-and-so going on about me cheating all the time? I haven't cheated on her. It's because they are feeling guilty and they are the one that is projecting their problems onto you. And so that is, when you go back and look at the marketing, that's the real vibe, the real desperate vibe I get from the marketing with the benefit of hindsight. It's not changed. It's not changed. You'll be able to use your armies. You'll be able to use them. It's not a reassuring tone in the articles anymore. It's actually a desperate tone in the article. And don't get me wrong, I'm not naive. I'm not there crying myself to sleep because Daddy GW lied to me. I understand they're a corporation. Corporations tend to lie about a lot of stuff, but doesn't make me like the corporation. Doesn't make me want to buy the product that they're selling. And considering that 40k and tabletop gaming is a luxury, I don't have to buy it. And one of the mad things that I think Games Workshop doesn't really understand is that this isn't your granddaddy's rifle. There's a lot more options out there, and whilst Games Workshop might be on the top of the ecosystem, they are not the only player in this game anymore. Because this brings me back to the second thing I was going to say about Warlord Games. They're coming out with a new sci-fi game. And I'm not going to give you the hard sell on it. Either you like it or you don't like it. But if you're someone like me who is looking for a palate cleanser from Warhammer 40k, if you're a Horus Heresy player who's pretty angry with GW and you need to step away for maybe a few months before getting back into the game, if you're someone that's just looking for a new game system, then I really do recommend you take a look at Warlord Games and Conflict 47. It's like Wolfenstein, Fallout, and Red Alert 2 had a threesome and produced just an incredible baby. One of the big turn-ons for me with Conflict is that it's sci-fi. And I know a lot of people like that as well. They want their war games to be fantastical, not historical. Conflict 47 is absolutely fantastical. It's got weird and wacky creations. It's got very customizable models. And the models are a piece of piss to build in comparison to Games Workshop. Like, no legs in like 4 bits or anything like that. It's just cool. It's sci-fi. It's wacky. It's weird. It's wonderful. And I can make my dudes. And most importantly, it's a game system which I know isn't going to get redesigned every 3 years. It's a game which, if Bolt Action is anything to go by, I can collect a model now and in 10 years' time still be able to use it. Oh yeah, and the rules tend to be pretty intuitive. Most people learn how to play Bolt Action in a single game. And if you're a seasoned tabletop player who's used to the concept of like rolling dice and all that kind of stuff, well, you'll probably learn it in one turn. I have taught people games of Bolt Action, and halfway through their second turn, I'm not needing to tell them how it works anymore. It's one of those examples where it's easy to learn, but hard to master. And even though it's not Warhammer 40k, even though it's not Warhammer Horus Heresy, even though it's its own thing, there's something about it which just feels old school. OG. If you're an old grognard, if you're someone like me that's been playing this game since you were 5 years old, getting into Bolt Action and Conflict 47, it scratches that old hammer itch without it even being old hammer. There's just something about the vibe that works. Oh yeah, and the biggest selling point is that it's about half the price of Games Workshop, if not less. For Bolt Action specifically, you can buy an entire starter army, which is 1,250 points, which is the point level the game is played at. That's the equivalent of 2,000 points in 40k, 3,000 points in Heresy. You can buy an entire starter army for £100. That's from Warlord itself. For the price of a 40k combat patrol, you can get a whole army. For half the price of one Saturnine box, you can get a whole army. That's pretty good for a side game. Pretty good for a palate cleanser, you know? But that's enough shilling for Warlord games. I know that's not why you guys are here, but like I said, I was really hyped for Heresy 3.0. I really was. But truth be told, all of my Heresy 3.0 hype is now going to Conflict. And if I want to play Heresy, I'm going to stick with 2.0. This leads me on to the last topic of this video. Right now, the Heresy community is caught in a bit of a catch-22. Because on the one hand, a lot of them don't want to play the new edition. It just looks worse. But on the other hand, there's a lot of pressure to play the new edition from game groups, from content creators, from big voices in the community. Now, especially content creators, they're going to be under immense pressure to move over to 3.0 and to try and move people over to 3.0, especially if it's their main game on their channel, the thing that gives them a lot of money, because they need to be evolving with the times. But you know what? That's not the case for me. Heresy isn't my main game. I get the vast majority of my revenue from the incredible support from the channel members and the Patreons and the Twitch subs and the Kick subs. I get my support from live streams. I get my support from covering Warhammer 40k. Heresy is the game that I like to play for fun. Heresy is my side piece. Heresy is my palate cleanser. And I'm not going to force myself to cleanse my palate with a big bowl of dog shit. I'm not going to cover 3.0, at least not for the time being. Until Heresy 3.0 is fixed, I'm staying right here in Heresy 2.0. And if you're someone that feels the same way, if you're someone that's like, I just don't want to go to 3.0. It's just bad. I don't feel like I should have to. Well, then you're in exactly the right place. Until I see Heresy 3.0 get fixed, I don't think they can fix it. Everyone's saying wait for an FAQ. Everyone's saying wait for the journals. I think it's going to need a product recall. I don't think they can fix it, but we'll see. But until I see Heresy go back to the way that I like, until I see Heresy 2.5 edition, which is what I believe was promised, what I want, what was got me so excited about getting into Heresy was the fact that it felt like old Hammer, and getting into it felt like proper Warhammer. I'm staying in 2.0, and you are very welcome to stay here with me. But you know what? I think that just about covers everything for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm sure there's going to be lots of other things about Heresy 3.0 that people don't like, which I've not touched upon. If you've got any, if you just want to vent, get down in the comment section. It's a safe place to do so. Be respectful to each other, but if you've got to get something off your chest, that comment section's there for you. And if you're someone that is excited for 3.0, I am genuinely happy for you. I'm not trying to yuck your yum. I'm not trying to piss in your cornflakes. Let me know if I've missed anything from the other side. If you've got a good point for why you think Heresy 3.0 is a good addition. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. And if you're excited for me to cover Heresy 2nd edition content, then make sure you subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.